wonderful. He's wonderful. He's wonderful. So we're going to continue today. We're going to continue. We're going to keep moving forward as we began to bring a close to it. But we got some more ground to cover. We got some more information to learn. We got to see some more values and principles in this series of thinking big and stretching everything that's in us to put things before the Lord in the righteousness that God is able to do, because He's able to do exceeding abundantly above all that you and I ask or think. Yes. Hallelujah. According to that power that worketh in us. Amen. So, we took some practical things last week. We had some examples about how to put in action and how to move forward. How they say how to put the tire where the tire meets the road. So we put some principles in together to know how to go forward. So I gave you some things to do, and we looked at how to be a master builder. We looked at counting up the costs first. I gave you a real estate example, so that you can get a mindset for each and every area that we were covering. And, I hope that you have began to push some things in action. Put some things in action. But today we're going to look at another blessing in what God has done for His people. And because of our time, we're going to get into it. How about that? Well, that's a great place for us to continue. So let's go to the book of Joshua with me. Go to the Old Testament. Go right past the Torah. Go right past toward the beginning. We'll go to the beginning. Look after Deuteronomy. In between that and Judges, you're going to find Joshua. You're going to find Joshua. We're going to look at some more of God's provision and His promise. When you get there, let me know you're there. We're going to take this together. Amen. All right, so in the book of Joshua, we're going to go with chapter number 1, and guess what? We're going to look at verse 1. We're going to look at verse 1. No, actually, what I want you to do, okay, let me give you a different instruction. I want to take this different. Go to verse number 8, and we're going to look at what sometimes we call the B portion. I want you to look at the end portion. I just want you to take your eyes to the portion where it says, "For then thou shalt." It's the last sentence in verse 8. You there? For then, somebody say, for then. For then. Look, for then thou shalt make thy way prosperous. Somebody say prosperous. Prosperous. It is the Hebrew word haggah. Prosperous is the Hebrew word haggah. You're going to understand. No, I'm sorry. That's not what I mean. Meditate in the verse 8. I wasn't going to show you that, but no, I'm sorry. Meditate is the word haggah. Prosperous is what we're going to look at right now in a moment. For thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have what kind of success? Good. Okay. Shakah. Somebody say shakah. It's S-A-K-A-L. It's pronounced shakah. And it means prosperity. Y'all shall have good success, meaning you shall have good prosperity. But why is he telling them they shall have good prosperity? Because he said, for then thou shalt. For then thou. So that means God is explaining something first. And then he said, then you shall have good success. Then he explained you shall have good success. So I want to take you and I want to explain to you about this good success. And then let's look at some things on why we miss it, so that we can actually achieve it. Amen? Amen. Now, when he is speaking to Joshua, he's talking about the time that Joshua has now been given the anointing to carry the children of Israel forward into the promised land. But I want to go back a little bit. Go back one book. Let's actually go to Deuteronomy 34. I want you to see something. Go with me to the book of Deuteronomy 34. God promised Abraham that he would give him a land of milk and honey for an inheritance throughout all the generations, right? To all the seed. He and Sarai, he was the father of many nations. Sarah was the mother of many nations. Or the Bible says, or the father of multitudes, the mother of multitude, things like that. But the promised land here is when the children of Israel are being out of bondage and going into the wilderness. Now getting through the wilderness, we're about to come into the promised land. But I want to take you back something, because I think something is awesome to view. But I want to take a look at Deuteronomy 34. So I just switched my lesson up on here. I want to change it because I feel encouraged to do it this way. Deuteronomy 34, verse number 1. Let's look at this. And Moses went up from the plains of Moab unto the mountain of Nebo, to the top of Pisgah, look, that is over against Jericho, and the Lord showed him all the land of Gilead unto Dan, and all of Naphtali, and to the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, look, and all the land of Judah unto the utmost sea, and the south and the plain of the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees unto Zoar. And the Lord said unto him, this is the land. Y'all hear me? The Lord is showing him, this is the land which I swear unto who? Unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob, the seeds of Abraham, saying, I will give it unto thy seed. I have caused thee to see it with thine eyes. But listen, but thou shalt not go over thither. So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of the Lord. Moses was not able to go into that promised land. Right? He died there in Moab at the height of where God told him to go, so that he can see the land that he had led these people in the wilderness for 40 years. God wanted him to see it. God wanted him to look at it and understand it. Of this is what this whole journey was about. But I want you to be cautious in your walk with the Lord. Yes, we're in a new dispensation. We're in a better covenant, right? There are instructions that God gives us that are precise, and God wants those instructions followed. Does that make sense? Let's take a real estimation for a moment. Can we be real? Can we be right up front? We've had ministry and Christianity, since the time of the apostles. God has promised, God has instructed throughout these centuries and throughout these millennials, because we've had a couple thousand years from him. Does the church walk in the fullness of God, not only in the giftings that the Holy Spirit provides for the healing and the wisdom and the word of knowledge, word of wisdom, the faith, the prophecies, the diverse type of tongue, interpretation of tongue, the discerning of spirits, all that kind of stuff. But beyond that, in our financial status, in our health status, in our relational statuses, in our mental status, and everything that we would consider to be healthy and fruitful, do the body of Christ walk in it? The answer is no. As a majority, we don't. We have few. Why not? If God said that He's able to do this, and God's been explaining this to every generation as we build a relationship with us, He lets us know exactly what He requests, exactly what is open and available to us. How come we don't have it? It's not just good teaching. This is real history. This is real life. This is real ministry. That means our walk is not being the walk that we should have. Our obedience is not where it should be. Our fellowship of the Spirit is off. So, is it time? I mean, even if only a remnant is going to achieve those things, because if only a remnant is going to be obedient to God, I want us to be the remnant. Somebody needs to walk in this fullness of this. Somebody really needs to superachieve and achieve. And it does require obedience. But in all obedience, let me ask you this, is there a blessing in all obedience? There's a true blessing in it. So when Christians are not really dedicating their lives to the Lord, not really living the way that they should live, you know, you got one face on here, and you got wrong actions outside of here, or you got the face on like you're faithful, but outside of where you're not faithful in anything, you're not going to achieve what God has for us. And sometimes the people that you're with can hinder you from achieving. Right? Moses was with the millions that came up out of Egypt, and because of all their complaining, their murmuring, their fussing, it got to him in a way that God gave him an order to do something, and he disobeyed how God said do things, and it caused him not to be able to go into the promised land. You don't want anything to stop you from getting what God promises you. So if I stand before you and I give you all the glory and all the promises of God, and He said He's going to do it now, but I'm speaking it because it's in the Word, not because He gave me right now a prophetic word that He's going to do it unconditionally, no matter if you do anything or you don't do anything. There's a difference. If God told me right now that He's going to do this for you, and He's going to do it, and there's no condition on me, He's not expecting you to meet Him in partnership with this. This is something that He's going to do, and He's going to do now, then I will give you that instruction. You get excited. It's for you, because God said He's going to make it happen right now, right away. Right? Or if I tell you these things are promises of His, and you're going to get them, and you get excited, you're going to get excited. And then how come year after year after year, after year after year, after a decade, you still don't have most of these things or all these things, or they're not operating? Then that means somewhere along the line, the how-to and the what-tos got lost, or when they were shared. But to truly get them all, we got to understand that these are principles. Somebody say that with me. These are principles. You have the principle and you have the promise. The promise is here that God says yes, but you have the principle here that you have to do this in order for the promise to work out in your life. God said it's available. That's why He says I'm able to do all this. He is able. Is anything too hard for Him? No. That He would do all this, but we're co-laborers with Him. We labor together, and we partner up with the Lord to do what we have to do, and we have to be obedient to God because He is the head. Christ is the head of the church, and we have to follow the instructions in order for the manifestations to work out, and they're not being followed by the body. So they're not being worked out. So we get a tittle, we get a tidbit here, you get some there, but we're not walking in the fullness. We're not walking in the glory because we need the obedience. We got to be obedient. So I said we got to be obedient. So when we're looking at Moses, Moses did not go in. He died there in the land of Moab. In verse number 6 in this Deuteronomy 34, it said, and he buried him in the valley of the land of Moab. So Moses was buried. However God caused it to happen, because no man knew about it. In verse number 5. So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of the Lord, and he buried him in the valley in the land of Moab, over against Beth Peor, but no man knoweth of his sepulchre unto this day. Right? Something supernatural God caused to happen. Right? And Moses was 120 years old when he died. His eyes was not dim, nor his natural face abated. He had all his face was not abated. It wasn't old, it didn't decay, it looked fresh, it looked anointed. His eyes were perfect still, and his sight was there because God wanted him to see all that. And remember, from the Hittite land to the river over here, and to this area over here, and to that area over there, God wanted him to see everything that he had promised Abraham, and everything that he had prophesied to Moses to talk to his people about. He let him see it all. God bless his eyes to remain so that he could see it all. Now, even though Moses was blessed by the Lord and he was honored by the Lord, and he is the only one in the scripture that ever was face to face with God, from what God considers face to face, according to that, God passed by him and allowed him to see his backside. He wasn't able to see him in this fullness because Moses would have died, because God's presence is too great. While we're in this natural body, you can't see him. But he allowed, God passed through and allowed Moses to see his hinder part, or to see the spirit that God revealed unto him. Moses was the only one able to see. He was the only prophet. He was the only one able to see that. But even in all that greatness and how close he was with the Lord, he didn't get to walk into the promised land because of disobedience. He's held responsible for his own action, but yes, he let the frustration of people in this situation get him to a point where he disobeyed. And yes, he was blessed, but he didn't walk in the promise. Not into the land. Right? Okay, in verse number 8, let's finish this part up. And the children of Israel wept for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days. So they wept there for 30 days. So the days of weeping and mourning for Moses were ended. And Joshua, the son of Nun, was full of the spirit of wisdom, for Moses has laid his hands upon him. And the children of Israel hearkened unto him, and did as the Lord commanded Moses. So Moses laid hands on Joshua. He was the one to lead them and go forward from there. He anointed him, and the people respected Joshua and followed him and obeyed him, just as they had followed Moses and obeyed Moses. Verse number 10, and there arose not a prophet since in Israel like unto Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. In all the signs and wonders which the Lord sent him to do in the land of Egypt, to Pharaoh, and to all his servants, and to all his land, and to all that mighty and in all that mighty hand, and in all the great terror which Moses showed in the sight of all Israel. So we understand all of this, that what we're looking at now. But Moses didn't get to walk into there. And I'm trying to drive a point is that if you're going to be believing God, and if God is going to give you to do some things, then you're going to follow a principle. You have to follow it no matter what. You have to follow it no matter who's around you. You have to follow it no matter if it's popular, unpopular. You have to understand that it's only one person that is truly on you, that truly walks with you when you walk with him, and that's the Lord. Amen? So in this journey of thinking big, on your process, you got to be careful on who you connect with. You got to be careful of people you surround yourself with, because you can get frustrated, you can get off course, and you're not going to achieve what you need to achieve. So in all this good that I'm telling you, I want to give you some caution because I want you to be able to achieve. And if anyone has another answer why the church has never prospered until this point, it's because of situation, it's because of other people, it's because of disobedience, it's because other people's word and complaints became your word and complaints, other people's negativity became their negativity, other people's disobedience became your disobedience. The thing about misery love company, when you're in the council of other people, you begin to feed off one another and be like one another. And if people are not where they should be, then you're more likely, if you're hanging around them, you're not going to be where you should be. Because you will know in the spirit that you should be separated because they're not walking where you're walking. They don't have where you at. They don't have what you have. You're not in the same place. Yeah, you need to encourage them, but you don't need to hang around them forever. Does that make sense? I'm giving it to you like it is. Because it'll tear you down. Unless you are on an assignment from the Lord, but the assignment from the Lord is going to bring God glory, so that won't hinder your process. Because if God is having you do something, it won't hinder your process unless you were like Moses. Moses was on assignment from the Lord. It wouldn't have hindered his process, but he let the things and actions of this situation. I'm going to get it myself. I do this all the time. Let's go to Numbers 20. I want you to, instead of telling me, Numbers. Let's just take a look at it. Go to the book of Numbers. Did I get the right chapter? Yeah, Numbers, chapter 20. Somebody shout at me when you get it. Amen. Okay. Numbers 20. Let's just go to verse number 1. I like to give you as much as possible. Even though everything don't always start at chapter number 1, because these are scrolls in the Greek and the Hebrew, and no chapters, no verses. But even though we're starting here at chapter number 1, it does give us enough to get an understanding. Then came the children of Israel, even the whole congregation, to the desert of Zin in the first month, and the people abode in Kadesh. And Miriam died there and was buried there, and there was no water for the congregation. Somebody say no water. No water for the congregation. And they gathered themselves together against Moses and against Aaron. So there was no water, and the people got frustrated, the people got angry. They gathered themselves. They mobbed around Aaron and Moses. Okay? This is a gathering around Aaron and Moses. Verse number 3. And the people chode with Moses and spake, saying, would God that we had died when our brethren died before the Lord. And why have ye brought up the congregation of the Lord into this wilderness, that we and our cattle should die there? So this is what they did. So they chose their words, they got around Moses, and would the Lord let us die like the others that have died? And would he bring us into this wilderness for not only us but our cattle to die? That's what he's saying. After all the miracles and all that the Lord did. Let's go on. Listen. Verse number 5. And wherefore have ye made us to come up, to come up out of where? Egypt. Did the Lord make us come up out of Egypt to bring us into this evil place? What does that say about their heart? They wanted to get out of bondage. The Lord heard their cries. The Lord heard their prayers. He sent them a deliverer to get them out of Egypt. And here, when they're in the wilderness, when they're just in a strange land, in a different place, even though the Lord showed all the signs and wonders, the Lord did all the plagues, the Lord worked through Moses, through all the splitting of the seas, and all the soldiers died from the people that were coming after him. All the Pharaoh's servants died at the hand of trying to come after God's people. Had all the miracles and all the things that they've done. Now they're going to say that they took us out of Egypt to send us into this evil place, meaning the place they were at weren't evil. See how your heart changes the situation? Sometimes you like something, then something worse, then all of a sudden something else is better, and this is worse. You change how you are. Bring us into this evil place. Listen, it is no place of seed or of figs or of vines. Does it sound familiar when I said the Lord said He'll lead them into a land of brooks and streams and fountains and rivers and deeps? And they had wheat, they had barley, they had vines, they had pomegranates. You know, they had oil and they had honey. Remember when we read that all over in the other verses? Now listen, they're repeating this. They said to bring us into this land. But see, that's the land that God has given them has all those things. Right now, they're in the process. Somebody say they're in the process. Yeah. They're in the process. They're in the journey. And they said to bring us into this evil place. It is no place of seed or of figs or of vines or of pomegranates. Neither is there any water to drink. But God has been showing Himself to them by a cloud in the day to follow, and a pillar of fire at night to follow, raining manna from heaven, which is not founded on the earth anywhere, doing miracles to feed them and take care of them and provide for them and bring them to the brooks and streams along their journey so that they can have sustenance. But here, when you go a little bit too far and you get a little bit weak because you've been some days and some time without what you're accustomed to, now you say the Lord is bringing you out here to die. The Lord went through all that just to get His people out to kill them. If the Lord wanted His people to die, He could just let the hand of Pharaoh do what the hand of Pharaoh wanted to do. And anybody that was disobedient, anybody that didn't pay taxes, anybody that didn't bow down to their gods and all that stuff, because Pharaoh honored the children of Israel because he know that Joseph that began all that was faithful unto the Lord. And so Joseph was able to worship his God. They worshiped all their other gods. And if Pharaoh wanted to kill all of them, he could have had all of them do, if God wanted them to die, he could have had all of them either bow down to what Pharaoh did, and the Lord would have let Pharaoh take over to that. They would have been separated. They wouldn't have been God's people no more. They would have been false worship and all this stuff. And so God didn't bring them out there to die. But that don't mean even in your walk you're not going to have hard times. It don't mean you're not going to have dry times. It don't mean that you're going to come to a point in time where it seems like enough is not enough and you're out here and you don't know what's going on. But you got to always understand the hand of God is moving, the hand of the enemy is always trying to stay it. It's always trying to push you back. Right? Whew. Listen, verse number 6. And Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and they fell upon their faces, and the glory of the Lord appeared unto them. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Take the rod, and gather thou the assembly together, meaning the congregation of people. Thou, meaning you, Moses, and Aaron thy brother, and speak ye unto the rock. Somebody say, speak unto the rock. Speak unto the rock before their eyes, meaning they are to see you speak. Because God called us to operate like He operated. He said, go to the rock and speak to the rock in front of all their faces, in front of their eyes. They need to witness this, right? Speak unto the rock before their eyes, and it shall give forth his water. And thou shalt bring forth to them water out of the rock, so thou shalt give the congregation and their beasts drink. Let's just read the rest of this. And Moses took the rock, and Moses took the rod before the people, the rod that he had led them with. When he held the rod up and dropped it, it became a serpent. He picked it back up and became a rod again. All these things. So he said, and Moses took the rod before the people, and he commanded him. Verse number 10. And Moses and Aaron gathered the congregations together before the rock, and he said unto him, he said, Hear now, ye rebels, people that were rebelling against the Lord. He said, Must we fetch you water out of this rock? You see, but when he said that, the Lord didn't tell him to, have that kind of, attitude of disposition. Because here his attitude started to change. Must we fetch you this out of the rock? But he didn't have to say that. They wanted water, they complained about it. He should have just went to the rock, as the Lord said, and spoken to the rock. And and the rock would have gave water the way the Lord said. But listen, he said, hear me now, ye rebels. And he said, must we fetch you water out of this rock? And Moses lifted up his hand, and with his rod, he smote the rock twice. How many times did the Lord tell me to hit the rock? None? Not once? Not 2 times? He told Moses to speak to the rock. Moses took the rod, raised up his hand with the rod, and he struck the rock twice. Because Moses thinking he got to break the rock open, to split it open, or whatever was going on in his mind. Well, he smote the rock twice, and the water came out abundantly, and the congregation drank, and their beasts also. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, because ye believed me not. Because you did what? Now here's what I want to say. God gave a direct instruction for Moses to speak to the rock. Yet in a natural mind, you as a human figure that rock is solid. I need to break that rock, split that rock. This is the rod that God gave me that performed all these miracles. So I'm going to hit it with this blessed rock that God gave me, because there's power in this rod. And I'm going to smack the rock, and I hit the rock. But what did God say to you? He said, speak. So in your walk with the Lord, when He's giving you direction for your think big, for you taking things beyond what you know of, God is going to give you instructions that's not going to make sense to you. God's going to give you instructions that you need to follow that are not going to go with your natural mind. It's not going to go with your mind. His ways are higher than our ways. His thoughts are higher than our ways. As far as from the heavens are from the earth. So when God gives you to do something where it don't make sense, the craziest things in our mind that God gives us show us that God is actually walking with us. Because where would this information come from? So don't be like Moses and figure out a better way to do what God, after God already gave you instructions. Don't figure you know it better than the Lord. You're going to do something different and get the same results. Because even if you get the same result, then there's something on the back end that you're probably going to lose because of disobedience. Listen, and the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, because you believe me not to sanctify me. To sanctify who? To sanctify me in the eyes of the children. Listen to that. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, because you believe me not. To sanctify me, God was trying to have, trying to prove and show them that just by speaking, that God would honor. Just by you have faith. He said, you didn't believe me. You didn't have faith in me. So you did something different. Because what Moses was familiar with was the rod doing things that are signs and wonders. But now God wanted him to speak. To sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Israel. Therefore ye shall not bring this congregation into the land which I have given them. Now y'all can't go in this land because you didn't do like I asked. How many times do I always teach and I give you the full? Jesus said what we can have, what we can do. The Lord said what we can have, what we can do. This is what we are to obtain. But then He gives us the principles on what to do, and He gives us the principles on not what to do. Right? So when I teach you, I give you all that so that when you do it the right way, you're not missing anything. You're doing everything according to God's will. You're not just going out doing this and this. You're doing your part. You got the faith, and you got the works, and you're doing it the way God says so you can get the manifestation. Here along the way, when people don't do what God says, you don't get everything God intends for you to get. Does that make sense? So go back with me to Deuteronomy. Go back with me to Joshua. Oh man, I'm not even getting where I wanted to get today. I took a detour to give you the explanation, but the explanation was good for you to see, because I want you to understand that all the blessings the Lord gives you, all it takes is obedience. All it takes is obedience. He loves obedience. He loves obedience. Doesn't he? When he loves obedience so much that when he told Saul, when he had Samuel tell Saul, because Saul disobeyed the commandment of the Lord, didn't do fully what the Lord wanted, only did partial what the Lord wanted, and he lost his kingdom. He lost his kingship. He was taken down and he was cast away by the Lord. And And Samuel had to tell him that what you thought was right, by not doing fully what God said, by what you thought was right, you thought that sacrifice, saving things that God told you to destroy, and you thinking that because they were so nice and plump and this and that, and because you thought this would be great as an example before the Lord to see what you had done, that you thought it was better than God's instruction to you. And he said, what you wanted to do with those fatted animals and calves and keeping the king, whatever, all of that, what you wanted to sacrifice to thank God, because in your traditions, you take the fatted calf, you take the cow, you take the lamb, and you burn it on the altar, you sacrifice it unto the Lord. That's how God has given you instructions before. Y'all follow me this? God has given you instructions before, right, to do these things. But now God's telling you to do something different. And when you don't understand the different, and you're taking that walk, and you're thinking, this is better, God always honored me with this before, this is what he always had me do before, I can do that, but I think God is going to like this a little bit better. This makes sense in my head that we should do this. That's when you mess up. He thought it was better to do what he was accustomed to doing, because every time he did that, God blessed him, God magnified him, God gave him victory, God increased his land, God increased his calves, his animals, God increased his gold, his jewelry, his rubies, God increased all that stuff. So he said, I'm going to do what I'm accustomed to doing, because the Lord always accepted that. That's what I want to do. But God told him to do something different. So just because you're used to doing something in the Lord, and you're used to doing it a certain way, if God tells you to do something different and don't make sense to you, you think this idea came up, something crazy, something different, you can't explain it, so you're thinking this must not be from the Lord. But without even taking it in and confirming things with the Lord, if you need to, you go back to what's familiar, but it's a different instruction. It's not your new instruction. You messed up. So that obedience was better than the sacrifice if he would have been obedient. That what he wanted to do before the Lord didn't even want that. It was dirty and filthy before him, because God told him to destroy something that he wants to burn and put before him. God said, the freshest thing, the right thing you should have done was listen to me. That's all you have to do to honor me, is to listen to me. So in all this walk that we're doing with him, you have to listen to the Lord. You know God, you know things that God pleases with, but when God gives you an instruction, you have to follow that new instruction. Does that make sense to anybody? So if obedience is better than sacrifice, what if I leave you with a question? Jesus was a sacrificial lamb. Was his sacrifice better than his obedience, and even obedience to the cross? Remember the Bible said that Jesus was obedient and obedient to the cross. Was his obedience better than the sacrifice? I didn't ask you to answer. I just left that before you. Don't turn it back into me as ask the pastor. I'll get to it if I line into it. I'm saying my own things. But the thing is that God always wants things to be followed correctly. Not next week, but the week after. Now I'm okay to take you into Joshua 1 and tell you what's going on in Joshua 1. And when I explain to you about the things that God is doing there, and about the success and about the prosperity and all of that, and now you know how not to miss it. Does that make sense? Right now we looked at how not to miss it. Now when he talks about all these good things, now you're going to see how they work, and you're going to see why it was necessary for me to take you there to see why you couldn't miss it, and understand now why you can have it and how you can keep it, and what God meant for you through it from his promise from before. It's going to all make sense. Amen? You got to come back to get it. You got to come back to get it. Listen, I got to get that. You got to come back to get that. Right? Got to come back and get it. You got to come back and get it. Amen. Come on, give God some praise.